G'day, my name is John. This is going to be a short video on a CodingBat recursion problem. There's three assumptions I'm making here before we begin. I'm assuming that you already know what a recursive function is, so perhaps you've solved some of the problems under the recursion 1 group. I'm assuming that you know what a binary tree is, and also what depth first search is. So if you're unfamiliar with any of those topics, then it would be good to perhaps do a little bit of Googling around first. So let's just read through the question here to make sure that we sort of understand what's being asked first. Given an array of ints, is it possible to divide the ints into two groups so that the sums of the two groups are the same? Every int must be in one group or the other. Write a recursive helper func method that takes whatever arguments you like and make the initial call to your recursive helper from split array. Okay, so this is my recursive function. This is my solution. You'll see here, when I'm calling this initially, I am passing in the value of index, so as 0, so we're starting at the start of the array. The nums array I'm passing in. I'm also passing in an initial value of 0 for my sum1, so my left side, and then initial value of 0 for sum2. Okay, so let's switch to a bit of a drawing to help explain this further. Alright, so here we are. Here we have my method that we saw previously in the CodingBat console. I've just got a couple of print statements in here that we'll see later on that might be useful. Here's the tree, and just a quick note that these tuples here represent sum1 and sum2. So 0 in this case, this is sum1 is 0 and sum2 is 0. And on the left hand side here we have the kind of depth of the tree, which is also the index in the array that we're dealing with. This is the array that we're using in this example, so 5, 2, and 3, which is this last one here, and the array length is 3. Okay, so let's start with the base case. So when we reach the base case, we are going to check if sum1 equals sum2, and then return that value. So the array length is 3. When the index is greater than or equal to 3, we will check this. Okay, so we're gonna always go down the left branch first, and then if that fails and returns false from our base case, then we're gonna try on the right branch. And so just a reminder about how recursion works. Each kind of method invocation is put on a stack, and then when that method returns, it's popped off the stack. So if we go down the left branch and we get a false from our base case, then that's going to return false. This evaluates to false, then that method is popped off the stack, and then we go down the right branch. Okay, so let's start right from the start. So I'm passing in the default values to my function, my method, 0, nums, sum1 equals 0, and sum2 equals 0. So we first start off here. We've got 0 and 0, and we're at index 0. Obviously the base case is not triggered, and we're going to go down the left branch. Okay, so we're here, we're going down the left branch. And here because we're working on the left, we're going to always add to sum1 on the left. So we take the number at index, the number from the array at index 0, and we add it to sum1. So this is here. This might be a little bit small, but you can maybe zoom in. So the number at index 0 is 5, and we're adding that to sum1. We're incrementing the index to look at so the next time we look at the next number in the array, and we're calling the function again. Alright, so we've got to the second method call. The base case is obviously not triggered, and we've got our values of 5 and 0 for sum1 and sum2. We go down the left branch again, and now we're at index 0. So we're adding the number index 0 from the array into to sum1. incrementing 0, and calling ourselves again. Calling the method again. Alright, so now we've got 7 and 0, and we're at index 2, so the base case is still not triggered. We go down the left branch again, we do this similar kind of thing here, and we call the function again. Now we have the values of 10 and 0. Our base case is triggered because we're at index 3, and we return sum1 equals sum2. Now obviously 10 does not equal 0, so that is false. So return false, back to the previous function call. And here we said if that function call with those parameters was true, then return true. But we found that it was false, so we are skipping to the right branch now. So we're going to try the right branch. And in the right branch, we are saying we're going to add the number at the index, which happens to be 2, to the sum2 variable. So in this case, we would come down here, we would have 7 and 3. So we're back at the top of the next function call. Our base case is triggered, 7 does not equal 3. So that is false, and we return false. Now with a tree, every subtree, a tree is made out of subtrees. So here we can say that this whole subtree is false. We didn't find our answer in the subtree. So we're also returning false back to here. Alright, so when we were last here, remember we went down the left branch. Now we're back here again, so that sort of series of left branch calls, or this whole subtree failed. So now we're taking the right subtree from here. So down the right, we've incremented sum2 by the index, which was 1. We're back at the start of the next function call. We've got the values 5 and 2. We're at index 2, so we're not triggering the base case. And of course we've come along and we're saying, okay, we're going to go in the left branch first. So we try the left branch from this node. We do our calculation in the left branch here. We've called the function again. We're at the base case. 8 does not equal 2. So that is false. So we return here. So that left branch from this last node failed. So now we try the right branch. And we go down the right branch. We do our calculation here, which just corresponds to this here. We're at index 3 again. Our base case is triggered. And now we have 5 does equal 5. So that's true. So that returns true. Back up here. That returns true. Back up here. That returns true here. And all the way back up to where we first called our function div array to group sum equal. Alright, so just one last way to kind of go through this same thing is to look at the print statements. Alright, so if we drag these up here. Okay, so going through the whole thing again. The first time we called, we had 0 and 0, so this is sum1 and sum2. 0 and 0 at index 0. And we went all the way down the left tree, the left branch, until we got to our base case, which is this print statement here. And we found that 10 and 0 were not equal, so we returned false. Then we tried the right branch, and we had 7 and 3. We found that 7 and 3 was also not equal to, were not equal, so that was false. This whole subtree was false. We turned back up to this function call, and then we tried the right branch from this original function call, and we ended up with 5 and 2, and then we went down the left branch and found 8 and 2. We're at our base case because we're at index 3. That's false. We return. We try the right branch and we found true. So we return true. return, because there's no other there's no other branches to go down in this case, so we will return true all the way back up to the original calling function. Alright, I hope that kind of made sense. It's my first video, so there's probably a bit of mumbling around and talking like an absolute degenerate, but I guess we should probably actually check if this actually works, just to make sure I'm not talking absolute nonsense. So here we go, back in the CodingBat console, go, and look, everything works. Awesome. I hope that made sense, and I will make another video sometime. Ciao.